I knew early on. I was probably about 7 years old, and I have to, you'll laugh at this, but I have to give a lot of the credit to the movie Star Wars. Yeah, I was, 7-year-old kid, and I had a babysitter one time, and she was an art student at VCU, and so, she was with me for a few hours, and she sat there and drew a lot of the characters. And she did these really beautiful pencil portraits of 3 or 4 of the characters, and that was the first time that I was like, wow, she made something out of nothing. I want to know how that works. I didn't early on. I didn't until high school, and probably my 10th grade year, I took an art class. And I had switched high schools, and I tried to get into an art class 2 years prior and couldn't. Took shop, took all these different things, but I finally got an art class, and so that was the first time. I unfortunately didn't, a really successful time with it. I didn't feel like I had the best instruction, but I got a portfolio together and got into VCU, and I did. I got a degree in commercial arts and design. That was one of 2 degrees. I also got a degree in art education. Well, I didn't at first. And when I got out of school with a commercial art degree, I went into illustration. And, so I was thinking about doing a lot of editorial projects, and that's the kind of work that I was going after. So magazine covers and newsletters, and I started very small with regional magazines, and did some corporate work as well, some posters. And I had a style that was very unique, not realistic, really quite the opposite of what I'm doing now. And it led me to do a children's book. And so I thought that's where I would be. But I got away from it. I got into teaching and stopped working that way. And somehow in that interim, I started drawing more realistically. And little by little, it's turned into a passion for doing portraits. Mm-hmm. I'll also say one other thing. I lived in New York for 4 years, and I studied at the Art Students League, which after college was a huge deal for me because it was really meat and potatoes kind of art. Drawing, painting, and sculpting. It was just the basics. I drew a lot from life. And then going home, I would always ride the subway, and I would sit there and sketch people as I went home. And so I would do these little heads, because I was trying to not get recognized in my sketchbook. And so everything was small. And I think that was the first inkling of what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. Well, I think first and foremost, I like to draw. Mm-hmm. A lot of painters just go right in with paint, and they do it very quickly. And I've spent some time doing that, but I like to draw. And so, I had to find a way to draw and then not ruin the drawing and build a painting on top. So once I had the drawing together, the watercolor allows me to build the structure and hide the drawing, but not destroy it. And so, that was the first trick to it. And also something that's unique is I use water-based oil paints, which sounds like a contradiction. But somehow they have chemically created a situation where we can work with water, and that lets me work with the oil and the watercolor very quickly together. And drying time is nice. So yeah, those are a couple of the reasons. Well, I'll get a call and have a consultation, and once I get a green light and I know it's on, then I'll set up a time for a photo shoot, and I'll go out and either indoor or outdoor when we figure out kind of what the goal is, and I'll take a ton of pictures, anywhere from 50 to 75, and so I'm just intuitively taking things, I'm moving them in and out of light in different settings. And I'll know that I'll have something to work with at that point. I come home after that and put everything in the Photoshop, and I narrow the selection down to 10 or 15, And from there, I start working with the client to find one that we agree on. Once we do, then I take the image and put it in Photoshop and do various adjustments. And then I work from that image, usually right off the computer. Sometimes I take more than one image and merge them together in Photoshop. And it's been interesting. Sometimes I'm taking an ear off one and an eye and merging it into it, and doing a lot of adjusting there as well. So the Photoshop skills come in really handy. From there, I do a basic drawing. No value. It's all contour line. Take a lot of time and really work out the likeness. Once I have that, then I can kind of run with the painting confidently. There have been times where I try to slack off on that stage and pay for it. I usually have to start over. So that's an important part. And then I do a watercolor underpainting. And that lets me lay in the values and block everything in since I didn't shade it in with pencil. And then I go to the oil and I finish it in oil. You see some of the watercolor through, but the oil really finishes out a certain area. I try to create a focal area. Mm-hmm. Draw, and so I'll work in my sketchbook. Work on more conceptual things. I'm thinking about more conceptual kinds of paintings, separate from the portraiture. So that would be the kind of thing. I like Photoshop as well, so sometimes I'm building things that I will work from in there as well. Mm. Wow, tons of artists. I want to look around at my books. I see books over behind me, and I think Aang is a big influence. Egon Schiele, Gustav Klimt, John Biggers, Andrew Wyatt. These are some of the ones that come to mind right away. I look at all kinds of things. I look at graphic novels. One of my favorite artists is Kent Williams, and he's a graphic artist that's now turned into a studio artist, and he's been fantastic. I went out to Comic-Con a few years ago and got to meet him, and I got a drawing, which is actually right over there, and so that was a big deal for me and somebody I follow. So. It feels like one thing, and I do a lot of things, and I think when I was a full-time teacher, it was like, let me carve out some time to draw and paint. And now everything's an extension from the drawing and painting. If I do a workshop, it's an extension of what I'm already doing in the studio. If I go and talk to a group of students, the same thing. So that feels really nice. I feel like that it's not something that I have to carve time out for. Now I have to actually try to keep up, and that's an interesting problem to have. That's a good problem to have. What I thought about, and I went to high school, and I said, well, I think this is what I want to do. I actually knew early on that I wanted my life to be around art. I didn't know how, and I got through college, and I certainly learned quite a few things, but I did not feel ready, and to be frank, I was not ready. So I waited tables, I worked in the hotels, I bartended, I did all kinds of different jobs. I worked construction. I taught quite a while, and so it's taken me a long time to get the experience, confidence, the personality. What I do now, I feel is personal to me. So I would say the best advice is just be patient, go live a full life, read a lot, see movies, have opinions, because all that is as much or is as important as what you actually draw, paint, or sculpt.